The Chicago Bears started this season unable to run the ball or make consistent stops on defense. But now, that defense and running game carried them to victory against the New Orleans Saints.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the better way to play daily fantasy sports. Download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. On the show today, I want to go through this Bears victory over the New Orleans Saints, including a really impressive performance from Dennis Allen's defense and really operating as his revenge game that he tried to downplay, but admitted to a little bit in his post-game speech in the locker room there. Also, great job by DeAndre Swift and this Bears running game, especially as Caleb Wiliams struggled. Second week in a row where we've seen a down game from the quarterback. Still don't think it's time to panic there. And it's also signs of how well everything around him is building up to be able to overcome when there are struggles. And I want to get through that and some of the other sloppiness and mistakes that they can get away with against a team like the Saints, but maybe they can't with teams like the Ravens coming into town or coming on the schedule next week. But let's start with this defense, because I think that group was really the story of this game, swallowing up this Saints offense. And outside of really like 3 throws from Spencer Rattler, the Saints couldn't get anything going on offense. And now 3 of those throws resulted in 2 touchdowns, but still, like, this was 3.5 quarters of dominating Bears defense. And I still think the final score makes it look closer than the game actually was. When you talk about the sacks, the blitzes, the pressure, the aggression up front, shutting down the running game, and then, of course, the turnovers, like, it all just seems to build off of itself, and you're seeing an aggressive, comfortable, high-flying Bears defense right now. Like, I think all of those things we talked about are really connected here, where it's like, okay, early on, Montez Sweat gets the strip sack, and it sets the tone for like this aggressive pass rushing game. It wasn't like they had Rattler under pressure on every single play, but Dennis Allen blitzed more than we've seen in some recent games. Saw Jaquan Brisker get a sack. I think Kyler Gordon got to the quarterback. Brisker also had a roughing the passer penalty on one of those rushes to the QB, and they were finding a way to generate a pass rush. I also think they were blitzing in the running game a little bit too to shut down Alvin Kamara, and the Saints had to really abandon their running game. Kamara was getting less than 3 yards per carry, and so they become one-dimensional. Then the pass rush can tee off, and then I think a more aggressive pass rush up front allows the secondary to be more aggressive, and someone like Tremaine Edmonds can get his interception in this game, or it forces Spencer Rattler to step up and attempt a deep throw that he shouldn't, and throws that deep interception, down the left sideline. And when you look at his passing chart, when he overthrew that ball, it doesn't even show up on the passing chart there, but he couldn't really get much of anything going downfield. He connected with Chris Olave on a couple of really nice touchdowns, and you saw the other deep bomb to the middle of the field where he hit. But outside of that, everything is kind of short and 10 yards or under for the vast majority of the game. And he wasn't terrible by any means. It's just the interceptions really kind of did him in by the end. But man, this Bears defense was swallowing and suffocating, and they were allowed to be that aggressive because they had the pass rush going up front, and because they were more aggressive up front, and they're able to shut down the running game too. And it all just sort of builds on itself, where success in one area creates more success in other areas of this Bears defense. I keep saying, like, they're not going to get 4 turnovers every week, and yet they keep doing it every week. I believe they lead the NFL in turnovers now this season. And generally, over the history of professional football, in the modern era at least, turnovers are not something that is sustainable. Like, you're not going to do it every week, but you can keep doing it a little while. You just also have to be good in other areas. And we saw that from the Bears in this game too. Like, I think the comparison to like the Commanders game or the Raiders game, side by side, was like, in that game they were getting gashed, but then got the turnovers to make up for it, right? In both the Commanders and Raiders games, the opposing teams only punted one time in each of those games because they were either scoring or turning the ball over. And it was like, well, the turnovers were masking other issues on defense in that game. Whereas this game felt to me more like the turnovers were bonus because they were shutting down the running game and they were taking away Rattler's throws and really making this Saints offense struggle. And they've struggled all season. It wasn't purely just the Bears defense doing it to them. But the point being, the turnovers weren't masking anything. They were like the frosting on top of the cake of already a good defensive performance all around. I do still want to see that progress continue as the quality of opponent goes up, and certainly next week against the Ravens, if Lamar Jackson is indeed healthy, that's a high-scoring offense. Even though the Ravens are not winning a lot of football games because their defense is so bad, it is really going to challenge this Bears offense, and I'm concerned, or it's going to challenge this Bears defense, and I'm concerned about that challenge with Tyreek Stevenson's injury. We're not sure, how severe, what the extent of it's going to be right now, but, left this game and didn't return. And so coming in for him on the outside was Nick McLeod. He kind of stepped in as that backup cornerback. He had been the backup for Kyler Gordon, but then now that Gordon's back, McLeod had been on the bench, but now McLeod moves from the slot to the outside. And so if Stevenson's injury causes him to miss a game, which we don't know at this point. I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself here, but you start peeking ahead a little bit and go, oh, if your outside cornerbacks are Nick McLeod and Nashawn Wright, I mean, I know the Ravens wide receivers aren't, the top group in the NFL by any means, but Zay Flower, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, they're a quality enough group that I start to get worried a little bit here. But hey, in the meantime, we can absolutely enjoy that. Hey, they did this really effectively in this game. We saw Nashawn Wright get that nice undercut interception too, of like when the ball was thrown a little bit behind by Spencer Rattler. So there's guys stepping up and making plays, and I think as the pass rush and run defense gets better, that's what allows Wright to play better, and maybe that can help Nick McLeod play better if he needs to be in there for Tyreek Stevenson. But hopefully, Stevenson can be back, he can be good to go, and we could feel pretty confident about the state of this Bears defense that really has come such a long way from struggling a lot in week 1 and certainly week 2 against the Detroit Lions. They got lit up for 52 points, and they still gave up 24 to the Raiders and felt vulnerable in that game. There were some vulnerabilities against the Commanders and gave up 24 in that one too, but this group is really coming to its own, really playing confident, and really bought into what Dennis Allen is selling. And cool for Dennis Allen. Like, I know Dennis Allen didn't get fired from the Saints because his defense wasn't good. It was the head coaching duties. His defenses were still really good, but still, it means a little something to him to do this against his former team. He said so in his post-game locker, something about, not being good enough for other people, but being good enough for you guys and everybody playing together. It's really cool. It's cool to see this group coming together. And now a 4-game winning streak. And that turnaround is I think, a good example of how much coaching matters and the difference coaching can make. Same thing is true on the offensive side of the ball, where we didn't have a rushing attack anywhere on our Sundays the first 4-ish weeks of the season, but now all of a sudden, DeAndre Swift looked like the Bears' best playmaker against the New Orleans Saints. And the running game was the focal point of the offense as Caleb Williams in the passing game struggled quite a bit. So I want to take a look at that rushing performance, but also maybe what wasn't working as well in the passing game and some of the other sloppiness in this win that they're going to need to improve upon if they want to keep this winning streak going against better teams. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SAD. Software as a disservice. And that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, the busy work, and the silos that your software created. We're talking everything from onboarding to payroll and IT access, running automatically and perfectly in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at RIPPLING, rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. So don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun and simple way to add more excitement to your football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or DeAndre Swift's rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. You can follow along with players in the app, and it's super easy to set your lineups. You can do it in less than a minute. It just gives you a little something extra to root for and watch along for with your picks, not just in football, but basketball, playoffs for the baseball season, hockey coming up around the corner. It's all on PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All of a sudden, DeAndre Swift has gone from, replace him at the trade deadline to star of this Chicago Bears offense. I mean, I think he was their best offensive player, certainly the best offensive skill player on the field against the New Orleans Saints. The offensive line did some nice blocking up there too, and they absolutely deserve credit for what the Bears did in the rushing game. But this was back-to-back DeAndre Swift games. I mean, the Bears had over 30 handoffs to their running backs in this game. I think it was 33 when it was also done. I guess if you count DJ Moore in the backfield, I guess 34, but you get the point, right? This was a ground and pound Bears offense in a game that, first of all, it's always great to see them run the ball well, but then they really needed it in this game because they weren't able to get the passing game going nearly as consistently as you would have liked them to. But I think what stands out the most to me about DeAndre Swift's 19 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown, I think there's two things. One, like last week against the Commanders, it wasn't like, there's the 65-yard breakaway run that really inflates the total, and then really you weren't getting that much on your other runs, but one big one made the final number look higher than it was. No, this was consistent 6, 7, 8-yard gains that he was ripping off here. I mean, he had a 23-yard run, and he had a 17-yard run, and he had a 15-yard run, right? It's big. It's big chunks, not one big breakaway. And so that kind of consistency there is super encouraging, and not just like one fluky, or maybe as Troy would call it, one lucky play, but by DeAndre Swift there. But then the other aspect of this that I think is most notable here is sort of like how they were doing it in the running game. If we think about what they did 2 weeks ago against the Washington Commanders, it was a lot of spread them out a little bit, rush to the sideline, cut up field and go. Those stretch zone, outside zone runs, they found a little bit more of an identity sticking to that. Against the Saints, they got a little bit of everything involved from a run scheme standpoint, and it was a lot more north-south from DeAndre Swift, like behind the line of scrimmage, than we saw last week. If you look at his next gen stats run chart, they'll show from where he got the ball and the exact path he took on the field on every handoff. It's largely between the tackles, not exclusively, but largely between the tackles. It's directional, right? I mean, you can see where he's flowing sideline and then cutting up field, but he's cutting up field a lot more interiorly. You can also notice it's very right-handed rushing. He broke maybe one run to the left side pretty much all game, but otherwise, no surprise. They like to run behind Darnell Wright and Darnell Wright's side of the field. But I thought it was better blocking from Jonah Jackson on that right side as well. I mean, they were really able to pull off that. But for them to be able to do this downhill a little bit more, and they were pulling guards and getting some. They had a big run on a counter concept and some gap scheme stuff that they had been struggling with in previous weeks. It feels like the running game playbook has opened up so much more. And I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line run blocking so much better, but also DeAndre Swift being more decisive as a running back too. I think in this game against the Saints, this felt to me a little bit more like a running back game, and not to take anything away, like an offensive line game, not to take anything away from DeAndre Swift, who absolutely ran well and forced some missed tackles and yards after contact. But Kyle Monangai also has 13 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. And Roshan Johnson gets 11 yards on his carry. And DJ Moore gets 9 yards. Like, all the running backs were having success running on this Saints defense. And that doesn't mean that they deserve no credit for what they did, but it does mean that the offensive line was run blocking really well for all of them. And the broadcast pointed out how much better they are at hitting the double teams and then really getting to the second level. And that's what's been kind of the difference through these 2 games since the bye week, now that the running game has really, really emerged. I think it was a pretty solid performance all around there. I don't know that Theo Bennett was spectacular, and he had a couple penalties in there too, but that's sort of a known question mark. And I guess, since we're talking offensive line, we can throw in the Drew Dahlman snapping thing, but I want to talk about that a little bit more coming up here. That's like the only bad part of the offensive line in this game was those weird issues snapping the football that are just a little bit head scratching to me and don't really have any, I don't have a good explanation, nor do they have any deserving or valid excuse for what has happened there. But they absolutely needed the running game in this one when they just were struggling to pass the ball consistently. And it wasn't like it was some horrendous Caleb Williams performance, but I don't think it was very good. I don't think last week against the Commanders was very good. It's back-to-back games where he has struggled a little bit here. And this one felt a little bit different, where it just felt like he was trying to do too much and pressing too much and trying to make big plays and extending and escaping and firing it downfield and just not just taking what the defense gives him, especially in a game like this against the Saints when it's not a very good opponent. You don't have to do all that. Just throw the check down and take the underneath throw and who cares, right? And I get that also because the running game is working so well, you're not passing as much. And you get to the red zone and you're just handing it off and both your touchdowns are rushing touchdowns. Whereas if Caleb gets a chance to throw on either of those plays, maybe he gets a couple passing touchdowns and then the box score looks better. And, there's always drop passes and yards and stuff that, could have inflated. I'm not so worried about the stat line, 15 of 26 for 172 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. It's going to be easy for trolling fans on social media of other teams to say, hey, look at how bad Caleb was. And I don't think he had a good game, but I don't think the box score is necessarily ever a really good measurement of that, all things considered. He still put the ball in harm's way, made a couple questionable throws in there, missed a couple things, took a sack or two. It just wasn't, or took a sack in this game. It just was not a sharp performance from Caleb. And he acknowledged that after the game, said he played poorly and needs to be better for his teammates. And I think that's the right recognition there. But coming up next week against a Ravens defense that gives up a ton of points, should be a good opportunity for Caleb Williams to bounce back. But the Bears are going to need to be much, much less sloppy against Baltimore than they were against the Saints and the Commanders if they want to keep this winning streak alive. So I want to go through some of the things that went wrong in this game and why it still felt a little bit like, not that they were playing with their food, but just they didn't dominate as completely as I wanted them to against a bad Saints team. And it gives me some trepidation about how long this winning streak will truly be able to continue. So we'll take a look at some of the sloppiness and where things need to get better next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, we know that the players sweat all the details. And Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model, because they deliver confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. You can really feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail. Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We are in the thick of the NFL season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, not only do you get the winnings from your $5 bet, but you're also going to unlock $300 in bonus bets you can use all across the app, whether that's on other football games, prop bets, other sports, you name it. They've got it all. It just makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. Like, say, this Bears-Ravens game, the Bears open as 6.5-point underdogs on the road. Or if you want to bet the Bears straight up against the money line, it's Bears plus 265, and the over-under is set at 49.5. So a $5 bet on those or anything else, you hit it, you're getting $300 in bonus bets. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. The Chicago Bears still need to play a clean 4-quarter game of football. We haven't seen it yet. And the things they could get away with against the New Orleans Saints, I don't believe they're going to be able to get away with all rest of the season against, some of the better teams coming up on the schedule. And maybe the Ravens are a sloppy enough team that, it's not like, oh, you got to be perfect to beat the Ravens. No, but certainly, we talk about Green Bay and Detroit later on in the schedule. Even Minnesota is going to be tough. Like, it was not as clean as it needed to be against the Saints. And it's something that we need to see more progress from if they want to keep up this winning streak. We talked a little bit about Drew Dahlman and the snapping issues. Like, it didn't cost them in this game, but it's like, what are we doing here? Not even snapping the ball or double clutch snapping the ball. Like, I don't have a good explanation for you, and I don't think there is any good excuse for it. Like, yes, I get it. Quarterback, center, first season together, but we're in week 7. They have both been healthy throughout the offseason, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, preseason, now 7 or 6 games of NFL regular season. Like, certainly we can assume that those two guys have between practice and games snapped the ball at least 1,000 times at this point, right? Like, how can there be any issue at this point? Like, I get every once in a while a shotgun snap that's a little bit off center. I can live with that, but penalties and situations that are hurting your team and potentially taking points off the board or opportunities for points off the board, that there's no excuse. There's no reason. Like, it'd be one thing if, maybe if you're playing against Aaron Donald and he's lined up right over the center, and maybe you're just a little bit worried about, okay, I got to snap the ball, and then I got to have the block of my life here because this is Aaron freaking Donald across from me. Maybe we can have a discussion about being in your head or something, but like, this is the Saints, and it certainly isn't Aaron Donald, and even that's not really a good excuse for a 5th or 6th year pro in Drew Dahlman? Like, that just absolutely has to be better. And same is true for like the penalties we're seeing on offense. False starts from Cole Kmet and Theo Bennett and Colston Loveland and illegal formations and like 10 penalties in this game. You can get away with 10 penalties. I think it was for 90 yards, if I remember right. You can get away with 10 penalties for 90 yards against the New Orleans Saints and still win the game handily. You can't do that against Green Bay. You can't do that against Detroit. If you make the playoffs, you can't do that in playoff games. And I'm starting to run out of patience for this team to figure out some of this sloppiness because there's just no excuse for it. Like, okay, maybe you can say, well, Theo Bennett's in his 2nd ever start at left tackle, so you can give him a little bit of a pass, maybe not a pass, but you can at least understand it. And Colston Loveland's a rookie who missed time with injury, so maybe, but like, it seems like it's a lot more of like a systemic thing here than just like one young player messing up here. Like when Cole Kmet is 7-8 year pro and is still getting false start penalties, or when guys aren't lined up right on this line of scrimmage with legal formation or miscommunication, right? When Caleb throws a ball and the receiver's not looking for it, and they're just not on the same page. It's like, if not now, like if 7 weeks is not enough to get that all squared away, then what is? Like, is 10 enough? Is 13? Like, and it feels to me like it's weird because it feels like it's a coaching thing. Like, typically we think about penalties and sloppiness is like, yeah, the coaching staff has to have them be better at that. But we've seen like Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen be so good at so many other things. It's hard to be like critical of them about that when like they fixed the running game and they've fixed the defense and they've gotten all these things going that really reflect coaching being done well. And yet this penalty thing just won't quite go away. And yet the receivers and quarterback can't quite get on the same page. And I keep kind of waiting for, when is that all going to be fixed? And that doesn't mean that you go to 0 penalties or that it's 0 mistakes anywhere on offense. But you can't keep doing this and expect to beat quality teams on your schedule. Like it just doesn't feel sustainable, especially when you've got some of the struggles with the passing game right now. Like because there's going to be against every team, there's going to be things that don't go right that are more like regular football stuff. Where like, okay, yeah, there's probably going to be games when your running game shut down again because you're going to face a really good run defense, and you're not going to get another 125-yard gain from DeAndre Swift. And like that's regular football struggles that like, okay, yeah, opponents present different challenges, but like the penalties you're doing to yourself, miscommunications you're doing to yourself, and like those are the kind of things that you have to clean up because you think that like along the way, Caleb Williams will step up and keep getting a little bit better here and there. Like, you look at how he passed in this game and the downfield accuracy wasn't quite there. They certainly didn't get deep shots taken in this game, but just wasn't able to connect the way you wanted to. The interception, obviously, not a great throw, staring him down. But also, I think on that play, Rome Odunze has a comeback route there, and he does not fight for the ball in the air. He needs to help his quarterback out there. It's not Rome Odunze's fault, but you're a top 10 pick at wide receiver trying to emerge as the number one target on your team. He's moving backwards away from the ball as the cornerback is moving forwards towards the ball and cuts him off. Like you got to at least fight for that ball. Maybe it's still picked off, but you got to help out your quarterback by fighting for that ball. But obviously Caleb shouldn't stare him down. And I think they pointed out on the broadcast he had an open receiver breaking on the other side of the field. Like it just wasn't sharp or crisp, Caleb, and he's allowed to have those games every once in a while. It's concerning that it's against a bad Saints team, where I think he had a couple other plays that could have been turnovers in this game and could have been worse. And I think the Commanders game was the same way. A couple of near interceptions that, you're getting away with it right now, but you can't keep getting away with it. So like, that's where we need to see the improvement from this team next. Cause like, I want to see the game where Caleb Sharp and the passing offense is dialed in. They're running the ball really, really well with DeAndre Swift, and the running game is getting everything you want. The defense is making stops. The defense is making turnovers, and they're not getting penalties. And we talked about it on Friday. Like the Saints were the opponent to do that. Dominate this bad team. And they mostly did, but not entirely. Like there's just enough of the like, yeah, that touchdown to Chris Olave, and then that deep shot in there that he hit behind Tyreek Stevenson, and then, that interception from Caleb Williams. Like there's still just a few warts on it that you're like, this was the game to be perfect or not perfect, but this was the game to truly dominate because, this is one of the worst teams on your schedule in terms of how these teams are performing this season. And who knows, maybe they'll start to figure some things out in New Orleans, but it's not going to get much easier than this, the rest of the schedule. I mean, we just saw the Giants play the Broncos really, really tough and then blow it at the end. We've seen the Bengals now win a game with Joe Flacco as their quarterback. Like we've seen the Browns. The Browns are still pretty bad. We're still trying to figure out how that's going to work for them. But the point being, like, this was the game to be clean. They still weren't clean, and so the work still to be done, even on a 4-game winning streak. I'm not saying the 4-game winning streak is lucky because I think there's a real skill to the resilience that they've shown across this 4-game winning streak. It's just more so it's going to catch up with them at some point. Maybe that's not next week against the Ravens. Maybe it's not even against the Bengals, but at some point, it feels like it's going to be a little bit too much to overcome. They could overcome it against the Saints. They found a way to overcome it against the Commanders and the Raiders. We'll see how long they can keep finding ways to overcome it. But however they do it, we're going to break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for a second listen today, be sure to go check out the Locked On NFL podcast to catch up on all the biggest football storylines from the weekends. There's so much football to talk about that Locked On NFL comes out twice a day. They do a show in the morning and then a second show in the afternoon. Tyler Rowland hosts in the morning. Tony Wiggins hosts in the afternoon. They're both great. Two different styles, a lot of energy in the morning, barbershop in the afternoon, kind of chill vibes. It's a really good show. You should go check out Locked On NFL for your second listen today. Come on back and make Locked On Bears your first listen again tomorrow for another opportunity to bear down.